Hey guys, welcome to Zack Snyder's. Nope, I'm gonna redo that one.
Honey, that's pretty accurate. Zack Snyder's. Nope, I'm gonna redo that one.
Hey guys, better late than ever, but it's the fake nerds, and we're here to talk about Zack Snyder's Justice League, or the Snyder Cut, as it's been infamously named the last couple of years.
I mean, even HBO Max embraced that.
It's true, yeah, you're right. I'm Ryan Leopolis. I got joined by Sparkz Witty as always. We got Ben Magnet on the other side. No Brandon T. McClure. He wasn't feeling the Snyder Cut, which is totally acceptable. It's a 4-hour-long movie of a movie we've already seen. Man, what a road to get here, you guys. I don't even know how to start. There's so much to talk about. If you're watching this video and you don't know who we are, we don't like Batman versus Superman, so just get ready for that one. I'm not the biggest Zack Snyder fan of his superhero movies. I like the dude as a filmmaker. I just don't like what he's done with the DC universe, which is why it's so exciting for me to say how much I really like his Justice League movie, which is completely unexpected for the trajectory of the movies he's made. I'm curious what you guys have to think about this. 4 years in the making, basically, right? 3 years in the making. Goodness gracious.
Yeah, I really like things for sure. I think overall, I think this is probably the best possible outcome you can get of Zack Snyder doing this particular thing.
Yeah.
And that's about as good as it gets. And I think that goes for better and for worse. I think that right away, regardless of whose decision it was, Warner Brothers or his, the idea to introduce all the League members in one film was always bad.
Yeah.
And regardless of how much he brings to the table here, you still see that was always bad. Yeah. I think that is fundamentally shown by this 4-hour film. That's even with 4 hours, it's not enough to connect with all of the characters. It's not enough to have them be relevant and identifiable as who they are supposed to be and their relationship to the world at that time. And it needed to not try to nix against the Marvel model, and some of these characters, not all, but some, should have been introduced in their own films beforehand.
Oh, of course.
Right. But I mean, that's the overall thing. I think that was always, regardless of what he has 4 hours to play with here, he does bring a lot of good and some not so good to the table. And no matter what, it was always going to be an uphill battle.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
So I think that's rough.
Yeah.
Funny. Okay, not funny enough. I was fully expecting to go into this movie just despising it. Now, I rewatched Justice League recently, the Whedon cut, as it's now being called, and I definitely see a lot more of the cracks this time around than I did the first time I saw it, which was in theaters. And I didn't hate it. The biggest saving grace for me is how Superman is in the Whedon cut. I just love Superman in that movie.
We all like the Justice League Whedon cut. We all think it's fine. This is a scenario where I think both these movies are good for different reasons. Which I think it's really interesting and fun.
I think almost down the line, parallel elements are these things are much better in the Whedon cut, and then things are sucky, and the things that are sucky in the Whedon cut are much better in the Snyder cut, and the things that were good in the Whedon cut are sucky in the Snyder cut. And it almost splits exactly down that way.
Not for me.
He favored almost entirely the characters that are underutilized in Snyder, and vice versa.
Sure, yeah.
But after watching the Snyder cut, I gotta say, I think I like this. I mean, if gun to my head, which one did I like more? I have to say I liked the Snyder cut more. And I was fully expecting to just hate this movie, to destroy this movie. And I don't know, whereas between the three of us, I don't know if I am the bigger Zack Snyder fan, because I loved 300. That was the first movie of his I saw. I was like, man, 300 is awesome. And I still really enjoyed the Watchmen film.
Oh, man.
Yeah, I know. I still enjoy the Watchmen movie, but also I really liked his movie Owls of Ga'Hoole. I thought that was great. I had a black movie.
We have gardening, so if you hear that, I apologize. I don't know if you can hear that. Like I like 300 and that Owl movie, and Sucker Punch is awful. His Army of the Dead, I'm really excited for. Like I'm really Jones for that movie. I think Dawn of the Dead's great. He's a more edgy guy, and I just don't think that works for the universe for Superman. And that's a whole other discussion that we know to get into. There are literally a bunch of podcasts we've already gone over discussing how he should be Superman. But that's not what we're here to talk about. We're here to talk about Justice League and how Superman's not even in the movie. Man, how do we even start? Goodness. Let's talk about the stuff that was cut from Justice League that's more present here. Cyborg. Cyborg is an entirely different character. He is a character. Again, he's not perfect, but like the simple fact that they cut so much of him from the movie, he's like integral to the plot of the movie.
He is.
Like again, like looking back to like the original movie we got, I'm just shocked that they went the way about it that they did, because they actively made their movie worse by trying to cut out Ray Fisher. In my opinion, I think looking at them next side by side, man, that first Justice League movie is like a 25-cent comic, and this is like a prestige. Like the Snyder Cut's like a prestige like event, right? Like they're it's almost incomparable to me, like how shockingly different it is while still being the same movie. It's really cool in terms of like editing and like just seeing how movies are made, what you can do with the same material. But man, I found myself liking Cyborg and not loving him. But like at least I cared about him in this movie. He's like not even existent in that last movie. And they tear him in half, and I'm like, oh man, they just like really didn't want to put Cyborg in that movie, man. Goodness gracious.
Yeah, seeing Cyborg in this movie, or at least Cyborg's quote unquote origins, it actually like him connecting with his mom, him like look, I'm a football player and dad constantly doesn't come to my games, and seeing that connection, seeing the relation, like his dad trying to relate or try to help his son. Yeah, I was like, man, this is a lot better than what we got in the Whedon cut. Because like you said, Brian, there was hardly any Cyborg character development in that movie at all. It was just like, oh, Dad, you made me a monster. It's like, but I've seeing the 4-hour Snyder cut where a lot of stuff is more fleshed out. It's like, oh, okay, there's actually character development here. Wow, I actually care about this. I actually like Cyborg a whole lot more in this. I don't love him, but I like him a whole lot more in the Snyder cut than I did in the Whedon cut.
If this was like his first introduction and this character was going to appear in more movies, like this isn't the worst introduction, right? No, like, especially again compared to the one we got. Like, it's going to be hard not just comparing them side by side, but like, there's a world where this Snyder cut movie is the one that we got. And the DC,
it's literally like double the length of what Warner Brothers would have allowed, even if Snyder had stayed on the project. They were going to mandate it less than 2 hours. Yeah, so we have twice what we would have had.
Yeah. So like I guess there's nothing. Yeah, there's nothing he really could have done to make. This is the best case scenario. Like the movie had to have failed to get the dream project that he really wanted. Because like, yeah, you're right. Like his Justice League wouldn't have been this movie. It would have been half this movie. And like, I can't even imagine again what he would have chosen to cut. And again, it wouldn't have been Cyborg. It would not have been Cyborg.
I think that would have made a better film. Like, honestly, I think the best version of this movie is somewhere, not necessarily taking the Whedon elements, but it's somewhere in between like how streamlined that film is and how overly long this one is.
Yeah.
And Snyder having to do a 2-hour version of this film, I think would have put Cyborg specifically as the central character rather than like not showing him for an hour and 15 minutes of the movie.
Yeah.
Which is a long time for someone who's so central.
But this 4-hour movie would not have existed. Like this is again, like this isn't even a director's cut. This is like, I don't even know what this is. This is like all of the footage he got to shoot just put into a movie. Like it's
well, because some of this is what would have been part 2.
Yeah.
But I would assume if Snyder had to live under the 2-hour mandate that Warner Brothers was wanting to do, he would make Cyborg that main central POV character, which would reduce Superman to almost non-existent.
Well, he's already non-existent.
No, I know, but it would take him almost entirely down to like which I think would honestly be better, because it'd be like treat him exactly and blatantly how he wants to treat him, which is a plot point and nothing more. But I think that would have been fine if it meant that you really felt like consistently Cyborg, we're following him. Here we go. This is the guy, and then everything else is kind of happening around and to him, with some characters and then some characters you don't know. But I think like the reason why that's so hard to say I get the way I want out of a 4-hour cut is because of how this cut works. He's constantly jumping around too much. This is one of my biggest criticisms of the 4-hour cut, is that I just don't like the choppiness of it. And I've tried to figure it out, and I think that part of it is him wanting to maintain some kind of day and night logic between scenes. Like, it's daytime here, which means it'd have to be daytime here, and that's why we're jumping to this character, because if we stay with this character, then it'll be nighttime, but then we'll be jumping back to daytime when we... But that means that, like, we're with a character for like 45 seconds and we jump to another character, but then we jump right back to that character we left. And I'm like, just stay with that character, stay with that thread, so that we don't keep getting jerked around so much. And that happens a lot, especially in the first half of the 4-hour cut.
I will tell you.
And I think that breaks up the Cyborg stuff in a way where he's not made center focus as clearly as a reduced length version of the film would have.
He is kind of like the heart, but it is an ensemble thing. Like, there's a lot of Batman, there's a lot of Wonder Woman. Honestly, you probably, because BVS focused so much on Batman, like, I guess he didn't need to have so much focus, but I love Batfleck. So like, he's like the one thing I like about Batman vs Superman. So like, honestly, the fact that we got like that BVS Batman back instead of like the reshooted Batman that we got, I'm like, oh, I'm so happy. The cheeky, silly Batman from Justice League, like, that's not the Batman that's from this universe. So I'm glad to have beefy Batman back. I do agree. Like, man, this like 4 hours, like this should not have been assembling all the team, but for me, everything worked in terms of setting up the team. Like, this isn't how the movie should have been, but like the Aquaman scene and all of Aquaman stuff works for me. He should have had his own movie before, but that is enough for me to go, oh, he's getting his own movie later. I like him enough now to get that. Again, if this was just Joss Whedon's Justice League, that Aquaman sucks.
Yeah.
Whereas this one, I actually can see the trajectory of the character and British Amber Heard, I guess. That's so great. I watched the side-by-side like comparisons of the two, and it's like, man, whose fault is this? I don't think it's Amber's.
I'm really glad that Snyder didn't have the same influence, I guess, over how other films looked that he did, like going to Wonder Woman or that kind of thing, that he wasn't like the creative architect of the DC universe when James Wan did Aquaman, because the whole underwater world looks so bland. And you get away with it with the Whedon cut because we only go to one location, and I'm like, I can accept that this one place is kind of like a temple guarding the mother box, and that's why it's kind of boring. But we go to like 4 locations in the Snyder cut, and they're all dull as crap.
And it's like the same location of like the king with the trident or whatever, and it just looks like so much more like vibrant and beautiful. And that's just like Zack's like understated tone, and it's like that's blah
for sure. But like it is, but it's definitely one of those things where like it's fine here. I'm glad that that's not something where that became the enforceable, like, what's set here is the idea, and this is how it's going to be, because boy, would Aquaman looks so much more dour.
Could you imagine
like
when Arthur comes out like with his trident in like the orange suit, and it's just like gray?
Like,
oh, it's so bad,
so awful.
The one thing he does better though, again, I will say all the action in the Snyder Cut's better. All of the action is better. It's longer. It's more intense. Like some of the action, I'm surprised that they took out. But we were just, I was going to talk about the action and relating to something you were talking about. Right. Got it. Aquaman. Mara's in this movie for a little bit more. We see Mara use her powers a little bit more. I think that scene's excellent. It's like really, again, the action's cool, even if it's a little colorless, but her using her aquakinesis to like take the blood out of Steppenwolf. Really cool superpowered stuff. If this movie does something well that he really hasn't done as well in the past, is using superpowers and combining them and just making really cool set pieces. Like, I think this is like the best, like this is him evolving as a filmmaker. And he just didn't get to finish it, unfortunately.
Right.
So Cyborg's cool. Let's talk about Steppenwolf, because oh boy, I like Steppenwolf a lot. As just like a generic-y like villain who wants to be redeemed. Again, compared to that first one, I don't know why they changed it. I really don't. I don't think there's a reason to change it. You can keep the same story and just not have Darkseid and have him be the same character and how he's like groveling for Darkseid. I think his armor looks cool if it's overly designed, but like the Corridor crew on YouTube, they're a great special effects group of people, and they did the Snyder Cut, and they went through all the visuals, and like it's really impressive stuff, that the amount of stuff that they're able to do in this movie with the limited amount of time that they had. So it's another reason where I'm like, man, special effects people are real cool, even though some of those shots were kind of already done. I just had to rework them. But I think Steppenwolf's pretty cool. I think he actually is what's the word, like scary sometimes a little bit.
Yeah, I have to agree. Steppenwolf, once again, Steppenwolf was another big improvement from Eden Cut. I actually do also like his design a little bit more in the Snyder Cut than I do in the Whedon Cut. I don't know why. It's just like, I know his armor, it does look silly, but at the same time, there's the scene when he's underneath Gotham Harbor where he's interrogating those people, or someone says something and like his armor spikes up, like it's like, oh, I'm about to fight now. And it's like, I actually kind of dig that. I don't know, because in the original one, it just looked like a blobby mess in a way.
He's just a dude. He's just a dude.
Just a dude. Whereas I love seeing him grovel for Darkseid. I love talking to Desaad and be like, hey, Desaad, I found it. And then you see Darkseid and he's like, oh, my lord. It's like, because in the first one, we know, us as comic book fans, we know Darkseid is the big bad. We know Steppenwolf is a servant of Darkseid. But the Casey casuals might not have understood that. When he says, for Darkseid, when the parademons are going out, they're like, the Casey casuals will be like, who's Darkseid? Who's that guy? Whereas we actually get to see Darkseid. And also, we don't have to talk about it now, but later I want to talk about Darkseid stuff, because I got a few things to say about the Darkseid stuff.
Yeah. Desaad, when you talk about Desaad, like, that's just a dude in a robe, but like he looks so much cooler when he's in his molten like visual form than just a dude in a robe that we see later. All the stuff with Steppenwolf and how, again, it's so funny seeing how like in the first like 20 minutes of the Snyder Cut, Steppenwolf establishes his base in Russia, right? We don't see that thing until the end of the Whedon Cut, right? Like that's when he gets there and he starts.
No, that's not true.
Or is that the opposite? What am I thinking of?
They both establish it early. There's just no good reason. In the
Whedon Cut. Sorry. Okay.
Yeah, because we keep cutting to the family in the Whedon one, watching it happen. The parademons coming there.
I thought it happens like
constantly
halfway
throughout the film. No. It's like that's where he goes after he gets the mother box from the Amazons. That happens in both.
Okay.
At the same time.
Okay.
But in the Snyder Cut, Steppenwolf specifically says we're doing this here because of the toxicity levels.
Yes.
That's why he's drawn there.
That makes
Whereas
sense.
in the Whedon Cut, it's just like this place for no reason.
For no reason. Okay, cool.
For no reason. Steppenwolf, Desaad, and Darkseid are all I'd say the number one best thing in this version of the film.
Mm-hmm.
Comparing is kind of silly because like you're comparing a nothing to something.
Yeah.
But it's kind of same with Cyborg. But Steppenwolf has better dialogue. He has better action. It's really cool to watch Omega Shenron fight the Amazons.
I can't tell you how much, like in that scene in the original cut, or the original cut, the Whedon Cut, that's still a good action scene. It's just really truncated and fast.
Yeah. Well, one of my favorite like changes is when when the queen leaves the temple and it falls into the ocean and it's sealed.
That's the trap.
And she leans over and she's like paying her respects. Yeah. And I'm like, wow, this is like
a good scene.
Really good.
Yeah. And again, that is a huge special effects scene. Like in the Whedon Cut, it's just I'm escaping from the temple, but the temple is the trap. That's the special effect. And then the temple falls into the ocean. That's the trap that they were trying to set. And that's not at all in the shorter version. I'm like, that's such an excellent scene. And it's only like a minute longer. There's just weird choices to cut the good stuff.
Yeah, I really, really love it because it's one of the first times I think where Zack Snyder's really made the loss of like life in a superhero film actually feel impactful because of how the queen acknowledges all the Amazons that just died.
Yeah.
Man, which surprisingly Whedon took out. And I'm like, wow, that's weird.
There's a great I just love, again, like the Amazons is like Amazons fighting is so cool. Like when Steppenwolf arrives and he's like I smell their fear, and then the queen says something like oh man, she's like, Amazons, show them their fear, and they're like, we have no fear, and they start fighting. It's just like a really cool like hype moment, and like, man, 4 hours is a long time, but this is a movie I would like to see in theaters because this has the bombast and spectacle that the first one just doesn't have. like in spades. Like this feels like this is a competing. I think this is a competing movie, not in terms of quality, but in terms of superhero spectacle, like the Avengers. Like it has some truly epic shit happening, especially at the end. That's just cut out of the movie.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that there's a lot of cool stuff that happens around that. I think Desaad looks really good coming through the metal. I think that
I love
translates
his voice
really well.
Yeah.
I like his voice. It feels a lot better for sure. I think that the concept of hiding the mother boxes is more appropriately set up.
Yeah.
There's hard work put in rather than men just burying it in the woods immediately. There's like thought and pretense. And
I love that, like, the Amazons and the Atlanteans try to destroy it with different means. The Atlanteans use like a giant octopus to try to squeeze it and eat it, and it doesn't work. I'm just like, that's fun little scenes that didn't need to be there. I love it.
Yeah. It's like they try to destroy the mother boxes, and then they realize, well, we can't destroy them, so at least let's just make sure that no one can get to them. But yeah, it's because there's this meme that was going around after the Snyder Cut came out. They're like, Amazons, let's have a temple guarded 24/7. Atlanteans, let's also have a temple that's underwater guarded 24/7. Man, let's just put it in the ground.
Well, it's because men are dumb.
Yeah.
That's why. Let's talk about, I guess, the last character who gets the most benefit, the Flash. I don't like the Flash. This is the one thing that doesn't work for me in this movie, and I don't think it's Ezra Miller, because all the stuff with him being a superhero with the Flash is dope. But all of his dialogue, I just don't like it. It doesn't work for me. I don't find him funny. I could see why he could be charismatic to some people and like charming. I just don't think it works. I'm curious what you guys think. He's the one thing in this movie for me that's just like, I hope it's not like that in the Flash movie.
Okay, the Flash, I think that for me, the Flash is middle of the road, because the scene I keep thinking about the Flash is his last scene, about when he's like, when we see Darkseid come in and he just like,
we gotta save that for the end. Because that's literally that's like my favorite moment in the whole movie.
Okay, but but to be honest, I actually like, I'm kind of indifferent on the Flash.
If you like him, that's fine. It's just like all of the new dialogue compared to the Whedon cut, like the Whedon cut's better because there's less of him, I guess.
Well, I think the Whedon cut's better because like what I think is missing here, one of the things I think Whedon did better was I like the idea of the just save one bit, where it feels like Barry is very new to this. It's nice to have someone who feels very out of their element as part of the team in trying to do this. And I thought with that, even though I kind of like the way that some of the Flash's action is translated into the battle.
Again, I love his action.
I know, but the way his action is translated into that battle versus the first time with the Whedon cut, I kind of like better. But the idea and the dialogue of him being new to this and not sure what to do, and Batman's like, just save one, and just start there, that being taken away kind of is tantamount to why Barry just kind of feels like a nothing character. He feels more like what Cyborg did in the Whedon cut in this version. He's just kind of there. He's not providing a lot. He's not very funny. He's mostly there for his speedster powers, but he's not engaging in a way that I find as connectable as I did in Whedon's version. Again, like that idea of someone who feels intimidated and out of their element felt really nice, and was a great addition to Barry's character, and makes the idea of doing a film where the team is so quickly coming together, I think, sing just a little better, because there is this kind of pushback of like, this is happening very fast, isn't it? At least there's one character who's doing that. I'm not ready for this. This is wild. And that's just robbed in this, and it makes Barry feel kind of bleh as a character, even though his action beats are cool. Like his powers are used well by Snyder. But he as a character is kind of meh. I agree. Especially like there was all this conversation. Ryan and I talked about this when we watched the Snyder Cut originally. But there was all this like Ray Fisher has a lot of good reason to say the things he said about Joss Whedon and everything. But one of them has been the cutting of is it Kiersey Clemens? Yeah, Kiersey Clemens as Iris West. showing his racism. And I'm like, that's just a scene that didn't need to be in this movie. If you're cutting it down in time, that's like the first scene I would say doesn't need to be in this movie. It doesn't do a lot to tell me anything. This is like Jimmy Olsen in BVS. Like, if I don't know that that's Iris, then it means nothing. It's junk. It's irrelevant. And even then, even knowing it's Iris, it's like, what are you telling me?
Yeah.
What is this? And it's also just such a terribly stupid moment, because it's this overly slow motion, dumb hot dog throwing, overly dramatic music bit.
I honestly, so the 90% of the music choices in this movie are awful.
Yes,
there are some that I like,
needle drops,
but there are some truly awful ones. I think the start of the scene, when like the piano goes do do do, and he bursts out of his shoes and he does like the finger. That's all beautiful. I'm like, oh shit, this is awesome. But then it starts getting to, he's like touching her hair and he's like moving her and he's like grabbing hot dogs, and I'm like, this is weird.
Yeah,
I feel awkward, and I agree. And I'm like, oh man, we were building up the cool stuff, and I'm like, oh, we're just gonna see more cool stuff later with the Flash. I'm like, this is unnecessary. I guess it's trying to establish his character of like, oh, he's always running late and blah, blah, blah. But like, we get that when he talks to his dad as well. So just an awkward scene.
It's just like, there are different ways to convey Barry.
Again, the Barry with his dad.
Abilities. Exactly.
Yeah,
but like throwing an Iris feels so superfluous.
It's just a setup.
But it's like set up for no one except for the nerds. Like,
yeah, no, it is.
The most mainstream audiences who would have gone and seen this again in the theatrical version, they wouldn't have known that's Iris. Nobody would have like, oh, she's important. Like, and even then, even in that context, like, it's just so weirdly framed. It's like, what is this? Like, he just seems like a creeper.
He seems like a creeper.
Like, if I didn't know that was Iris beforehand, I would have never thought that was Iris West.
The only reason we knew it was Iris because we're nerds who look at casting calls and stuff.
Yeah,
that's the only reason.
I would just thought, oh, that's just some random girl that he has a bit of a crush on and he saves, and that's the end of that.
Yeah, honestly, like if it wasn't her, it really wouldn't have mattered. He saved a girl and was awkward about it. Let's talk about Batman. Batman's still cool. He's better in this movie because he's not reshooted and Ben Affleck isn't as sad. Batfleck has more of an arc in this movie as well. He's like, not that he didn't have it in the Whedon Cut, but it's more like talked about in this. Like, he has to like, oh, I made a promise on his grave and I got to bring us together. And Lex Luthor is saying some weird shit and nobody believes me. And Wonder Woman is like, Lex Luthor's crazy. And then she gets a vision from Darkseid. Okay.
Mm-hmm. He definitely has better dialogue throughout this. It's definitely one of those things where, again, like kind of looking at that like condensed version where maybe you made Cyborg the central character and everything. I think like most of Ben Affleck's stuff would have stayed because smartly so, there's very little where he's by himself.
Yeah.
He's almost always engaging with one of the League members because he is basically operating as connective tissue, which I think works to the film's benefit, because you don't need a lot of solo Batman in this movie. Or Bruce Wayne. You don't need that.
We got an entire last movie.
You got well, like even if you didn't, even if you were a person who's just aware Ben Affleck's playing Bruce Wayne Batman, you don't need the knowledge of BVS even. You could just come to this and be like, I understand Batman's role.
True.
This is like the last thing that needs exploration in this film is any more about Batman. I understand Batman.
Yeah.
And I think he rightly incorporated him as just the connecting piece amongst all the members and constantly engaging with them rather than trying to do some kind of solo arc with him.
Yeah. I do agree with that.
Definitely the setup with him going to Arthur in the beginning is much better. And then the setup for the mother boxes and everything.
It's so much better. It's unbelievable. Like there's just stuff cut that makes that original cut not make any sense. Like he goes there and Arthur Curry knows that he's Batman. He knows that he's Bruce Wayne. And they cut the part where it gives him the business cards that introduces him. And I'm like, that's literally 5 seconds of a movie is introducing yourself with your business card. So he knows who you are. It's just the little things that just like, why make these choices? Man, those girls singing and sniffing his sweater, also weird.
Yep.
Weird choices.
That is the second moment after Barry saving Iris that I'd be like, that's just doesn't need to be in this movie.
Weird. like the start of the scene I like, because like with the singing and then like the choral, I'm like the chorus, I'm like, oh, this is kind of like haunting and cool. But then it keeps going, and then she sniffs a sweater, and then it keeps going. And I'm like, Zach, I get you at 4 hours. I get it.
This is definitely like the other thing that happens with doing this 4-hour cut is that Zack Snyder never had to kill his darlings.
No,
he never had to wrestle with that idea
could grow
at
them.
all. Yeah, and that hurts this cut, because frankly, like, this didn't need to be reduced to 2 hours. This didn't need to be 4 hours either. It could have been a healthy 3 hour 15.
Yeah,
even
honestly, cut a lot of the slow-mo. And cut a lot of these extra scenes.
Oh, yeah.
This is an excellent 3 hour movie. If I had better editing chops, like there's a 3 hour movie here that I would watch over and over again for real.
Yeah, I agree. I think that there is a stronger film in just minimizing certain ideas. Like you take that whole Barry Iris scene right out. You just don't need it. You just don't need it. And a lot of the slow motion, like you said, there are certain moments. Right away cut. I didn't want to jump to this right now, but right away cut out the bit where Martian Manhunter is Martha Kent, just in that scene of them talking.
Ben, well, I want your facial reaction when you saw Martha Kent turn into Martian Manhunter. What did you do in your seat?
I was like, huh?
I definitely like literally, because I did this in like a consistent sitting downstairs by myself late at night, and I was taking notes as I went, which is what I'm looking through. I'm looking through all my notes because I took copious notes, and I'm taking notes as I go. And that moment happened, and I just written like, what a great Martha Lois scene. I literally wrote the note, what a great Martha Lois scene. This is much better than the Daily Bugle scene,
the thirsty moment
that happens in the Whedon cut. This feels like it's developed both the characters better. I understand where they're both at in relation to the death of Clark and everything. And then she steps out and turns into Martian Manhunter, and I literally just toss my phone aside.
It's like you had the whole time when it was Martha and Lois, I was like, yes, this is some good stuff. This is a mother who lost her son, a woman who lost the man that she loved. They had this great connection. They were bonding and they were talking, and it's like, this is good. This is some good stuff. After, as much as I hate the fact that they killed Superman at the end of BVS, I was like, this is some good fallout. This is them like dealing with the loss. And then she turns to Martian Manhunter. I was like, now it's ruined. The whole thing is ruined. It's like, it's God damn it. It's like, you were this close, Zach. You were this close.
It still works for Lois's end, but unfortunately,
unfortunately,
man.
Well, and again, like, it's another one of those things where I sit there and I'm like, I don't like, what does this do? Other than like telling me Martian Manhunter's here, like, what does this do for the character stuff?
Nothing.
It did much more for it to have been Martha than it does to tell me Martian Manhunter is in this. He could have just not shown up until the end, and it would have worked just as well. Like, the only thing you're doing here, the only thing you're doing here is letting me know, by the way, Martian Manhunter, also that dude from Man of Steel, right?
What we're talking about,
and you're like,
since we're talking about Martian Manhunter, let's just talk about the end real quick, where he just shows up and he's like, I'm gonna help you, Batman, or whatever. That's supposed to be Green Lantern. They shot the Green Lantern footage in Zack Snyder's garage or whatever, and Warner Brothers would not let him put Green Lantern in the movie, so he made it Martian Manhunter instead. That was going to be Jon Stewart. There is footage of that exists. So release the Snyder cut is what I'm saying. I'm just joking. It's odd. It's just odd. Like, it's cool that the Martian Manhunter's there. It doesn't make sense that it's this character who's existed from Man of Steel. Why would Martian Manhunter work for the U.S. government for 20 years? Very stupid. I don't care what you say.
I think he just likes that actor. Like, honestly, that's all. I get it. I think he wanted that actor to be a bigger thing ever since he had him be the guy who came out and did the BVS announcement at Comic-Con.
Yeah, you got that mind.
But Martian Manhunter, he doesn't feel right in that scene. He could have shown up at the end. His CGI is really bad.
Yeah.
The human ears in his Martian form really throws me off. He barely looks better than the version of Martian Manhunter on Supergirl on the CW.
And it's strange because I think he definitely was the last thing to get done, because most of the CGI in this movie is good. Like, most of it's pretty good for the time constraints and whatever, and like working through the pandemic.
Yeah, I would say he definitely looks the worst.
He is definitely the one where, like, again, because if you like, you can look it up, like, you can see the behind the scenes footage of
some of Cyborg shots still look really
really
unfinished,
especially the nightmare scenes.
Yeah,
straight up looks like
and anytime they put the full face over, that just doesn't.
His Iron Man.
I like Cyborg's character stuff better in this movie, but his CGI body still looks like shit.
It was still, it wasn't a good decision. Again, once we have Doom Patrol, man.
Yeah, one of the things about Cyborg that I didn't like was like how they turned in like the Iron Man full face shield, or the Iron Man style.
I think it looks really bad.
And also, that's a good moment, like of Victor flying into the air and like being really happy. And then they shut his face down.
I know. It's one of the few moments where I feel like Ray Fisher's getting to express something that is Victor and not the machine that Cyborg is becoming.
Yes.
And they constantly close it off. This is one of my biggest problems with this film, is that I'm like, they always like run right up to the idea of Victor getting to like, I like the idea of what Victor's arc is supposed to be, but I do feel it's underexplored. I don't think that they make a full arc connection of like Victor wrestling with how much of me is man now inside of the machine. And it's hinted at, but it's not done.
Yeah.
And especially like the relationship with his dad. I like the stuff related to his dad's sacrifice. However, I do feel like we kind of cut off a lot of what that relationship could have fostered between them. I don't think it fully got explored in this film in the way that it should have, for a 4-hour cut.
Yeah.
Like the amount of Cyborg development feels more appropriate to me for a 2-hour film. But I wish there was more.
Yeah.
It just doesn't go the extra mileage that I wish it did, and it doesn't fully win me over on Ray Fisher's performance as Cyborg still, even though I like him better in this. I desperately wanted them to connect with more. This is something I talked to you about in comparison to the Whedon cut, even though I overall like the whole ending moment of this better in this version. The idea of him expressing, and I'm not saying I want this exact moment, but I wanted this idea to be there. The idea of him expressing to Superman in the Whedon cut, when they're pulling the boxes apart, and he's saying, and Superman's saying, "Cool, because I kind of like being alive," and Cyborg says, "So do I," which is supposed to be a revelation for the character that, like, yes, I do actually want to keep doing this. I do want to be this thing I am now. That idea feels pretty lost in the finale of this version.
We do get, and it isn't fully earned, but like when he's in the nightmare world talking to the mother boxes, and he's like, and the mother box is like, "You won't have to be alone," or like, "You're broken, you can hang with your family." And he's like, "I'm not lonely or broken," or whatever. And like, that's a nice moment, but it's not fully earned.
Right.
But that finale is so bonkers and awesome to me that like it kind of works for me a little bit.
Yeah, I'm talking more minutia of Cyborg's arc, just like, I wanted that idea to be expressed better. I wanted that arc to be there more.
Yeah.
It's definitely an improvement, but again, you're comparing a nothing to a something.
Oh yeah.
And it still could have been more. I wish it had been more, both for Ray Fisher's sake and just the film itself.
Can we talk about the war criminal Wonder Woman?
I want to talk about, like, real quick, one of the weird lines that I had to rewind because I'm like, did I hear that right? Which is when she's doing the hostage situation at the beginning of the film, and she's got the guy on the lasso.
Yeah.
And he's stating stuff, and she says, "Boring. Why the hostages?" And I'm like, that's a weird Wonder Woman line.
I thought it was good. I like Zack Snyder's Wonder Woman. Because Wonder Woman in the comics, like, she's not like Superman or Batman. She's a warrior. Not that they're not fighters, but she's a warrior and she's a killer. And that's what I've always liked about her. Is like she's not willing to hold her punches. And that's something Zack Snyder doesn't. That's something he does. He doesn't hold her punches. I don't think she needs to kill a guy by using her bracers and causing $1 million worth of property damage. But that made me laugh out loud because that is so stupid. Like, she takes out all these other dudes and then she destroys a building to save one guy, and then she talks to this little girl. "You could be just like me one day, murdering men."
That's a weird moment.
It is so weird, but I like it because for Wonder Woman, who is this like immortal goddess warrior, that works for me. Because like she sees this little girl and like, "Oh, you want to be like me? I'm the best. You can be just like me one day." And it's like, look behind you at the destruction. That works for me in this Zack Snyder universe. If this were, Patty Jenkins Wonder Woman, like, where did that character go? But it's not. This is punch you in the face, Zack Snyder.
But I guess that's a reasonable like debate of, this is supposed to still be Patty Jenkins Wonder Woman. He was still involved in that movie. He knew that these two things were tied to each other, and I don't see that.
Yeah,
like he didn't bring that across. Like, this is not an Aquaman situation. No. She was established. He knew what she was, and some things feel a little. I hear what you're saying.
When did Wonder Woman come out?
It came out the same year that Justice League was going to come out, but he was involved on both productions, so he was overseeing. He knew what she was.
Yeah.
So
but also we got Wonder Woman 84, so
yeah.
So like it's so for this specific version of Wonder Woman, I like it. She's aggressive in the ways that like she's not usually, and I appreciate it.
That probably has my like the dumbest slow motion moment, I think, which is when she tosses the bomb in the air.
Oh yeah,
just like 30 seconds of her just.
I mean, there's also like a 5-minute arrow shot, so like he loves his excess. The action in this scene, it's like it's better. There's twice as much of it. There's a sweet moment where she's like, bow, 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 and I'm like, why didn't you put that in the movie?
Yeah, it looks her action in this looks a lot better.
Yeah, like all the Wonder Woman action is still good. I'm a believer. Murders a man.
I think the idea of her investigating the arrow is better.
Yeah,
I like that pretense in this.
Yeah.
We
get the flashback. We get that flashback. That was cool before, but now it's even better because now we got Ares.
No, I love the flash or her. I love her going like Indiana Jones style, like going to the ruins and finding the room and seeing the mural of Darkseid and everything. I was like, this is some good stuff. This just seeing like the Wonder Woman stuff, like the fight scene, I do enjoy. I also agree with Sparkz. The whole slow mo of her flying up is kind of dumb and silly. I don't have a whole lot of notes about Wonder Woman because a lot of the Wonder Woman stuff I really enjoyed. I had a blast with her.
Oh, do you like her new pre theme before her actual theme? Where it's like, ha!
That's like one of the few things I do like about Junkie XL's music in this film.
He doesn't go by that anymore. His name's Tom something. He hasn't used Junkie XL in a long time. That's his name though.
That's how they still credit him on his scores. So I don't know what to tell you.
On this movie, his name's like Tom Holtzberg.
Cool. On the official soundtrack release, Junkie XL.
On Justice League?
At least on Godzilla vs. Kong. So
I don't think so. Hold on. Do you like the preamble, Ben?
I did.
Look it up.
I did. Like even when we did get there with the da-na-na-na-na-na, but like the that before I was like, it was like, okay, that adds a nice touch to the theme song.
I don't know if we need 2 theme songs for one character, but like I liked it.
I liked it too.
I liked it.
I still feel a way that I felt when I was doing. Cool.
I'm just letting you know.
All right. Godzilla vs. Kong still says Junkie XL.
Look it up.
Last time I looked at it, yeah.
All right. Let's talk about something else.
In terms of the flashback, I still feel like to anyone who's not like comic audience, seeing the flashback and Darkseid getting his butt kicked.
Okay, I'm just saying you're so confident.
Everywhere still talks about him like he's Junkie XL, so I don't.
I'm saying it's like using his name that he doesn't use anymore. That's all I'm saying.
Okay. Darkseid in the flashback still seems like kind of a punk. Like I think that it loses the gravitas of him in terms of the Justice League having to face him, because it's like, here's an axe blow, done. Darkseid just almost murdered, like the end, and there he goes.
I've been conflicted on this because like this is thousands of years ago. You could do the thing where like he's not the Darkseid he is yet, but I don't buy that. I do buy that all of the gods and all the people of Earth were able to come together, and Ares, the god of war, is able to slash him. I do buy that.
I would buy that too. I just feel like in the context of the visual that we see, it's one axe blow gets in.
Yeah.
And that's it. And it's like, dude, Steppenwolf is tougher in the end fight
than
that.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm like,
yeah.
We're supposed to be afraid of Darkseid coming. Like like I wish there was more of Darkseid really putting up a good struggle with all those gods at once. It feels like this is one of those situations where, you know, you get the criticism in like a Dragon Ball Z fight where like, why aren't they all fighting the person at once?
They all hold back.
This should have been that. This should have been a whole pile-on. Like the only way that they could damage Darkseid is with all these dudes like piling on him and getting in their blows. Like that would have made it feel more impactful. It's the fact that it's just this one like got that axe and oh man, there he goes, he's down.
That is a good point,
gets dragged off into the ship, and I'm like, I'm supposed to be afraid of that,
especially
dude?
Especially if you're a fan of the comics, you know what he's capable of. But if you're just a person watching this and like this is the Thanos,
that's what I mean.
Like that Thanos got taken out by the guy who got beat up in Wonder Woman.
Yeah, that's what I mean, is that like in the context of people who aren't comic dorks, it's hard to find Darkseid intimidating.
I guess it's true, but also I think this is like supposed to be like the first time he's ever been defeated. So like it's him like checking himself.
I get you. It's
like,
again like you can totally like justify and everything visually. What you are told is like see that guy that's again like in the same film you will watch the Justice League have a tougher time taking down Steppenwolf comparatively in the action of visuals.
Yeah, that's true.
And that makes Darkseid seem less intimidating.
No, yeah, that's very true. Yeah.
But otherwise, I think the flashback sequence is really cool. That's just the one thing where I go, oh, he just kind of seems like a punk now.
Yeah. It's a different Green Lantern than the one from Whedon's, right? It's not like a Monkey Man. I don't remember. He definitely doesn't have a cape. I don't think.
I mean, I think the design is slightly different, but more or less the alien is the same, or at least the same idea.
Yeah. I just love seeing Greek gods everywhere. I think that's great. I love Big Zeus with his big muscles. I love a Zeus that's not just an old like white-haired gray man. Like I love when it's like a big young like this dude's like a bodybuilder. I think that's great. Let's see. Is there any justice? Oh, Aquaman. Aquaman's in this movie. He's fine. He's good.
Boy, am I glad that we abandoned that talking water bubble idea.
Oh my god, yeah.
It looks really bad. Like when I specifically we get to the scene where Willem Dafoe's character shows up,
Volko,
and he's got that ugly ass armor, and they have the conversation in the talking bubble, and I'm like, oh man, I am so glad that James Wan didn't have to follow suit with this.
Yeah,
the whole concept of Atlanteans is so clearly different because like we don't have the concept of high class and lower class not being able to breathe on land.
Yeah. There is some nice I use the word, just like setup of the Aquaman movie where they're talking about like, you're King Orm, blah 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 blah. I'm like, oh, okay, they're doing the setting up and blah blah blah. Yeah, there's not much Aquaman, so I guess that's cool. What else? We talked about all the Justice League. Is that all those guys?
We're missing one, but he just hasn't shown up he's only at the very end of the movie, and that's like my biggest criticism. So we want to wait for that.
I forgot about Superman.
Because he's
not in the movie. Just like yeah. Superman he's in it as much as the last one, but he's better in the last one. So like I don't know.
I think he might be in it a little less actually.
You think so?
I think so.
There's a lot more farm stuff. There's a couple more minutes of farm stuff for sure.
That's true. But you lose all the saving the building and
that's true.
The opening with the phone interview and things like that.
Yeah.
It might be about even, but I feel like there's more substance certainly in the Whedon one than there is here for Superman. Specifically.
Yeah.
Would we call it substance or we're just finally getting what we want? Because I don't know if I don't think it's the best thing ever rewatching it. It's just him saying, I'm a big fan of justice. Like
No. Okay. Like I will always defend that the Whedon cut, the opening is one of my favorite things because it makes me believe the premise of this film that no matter what they do in this movie, they can't make me believe if I watch BVS, which is that the world gives a shit that Superman died.
Mm-hmm.
And that interview where it's talking to Superman and it employs this idea of him as a present heroic figure who gave a shit about humanity and people really liked him and connected with him. That simple moment makes everything that followed in the Whedon cut feel like, yeah, you're right, man, the world really is missing Superman. And that being absent from this movie still makes that a hard sell for me. That is substance. That is this idea that like it matters to everyone that Superman is gone. And I'm still, when I come to this one, because the context is BVS, I'm like, dude, who cares?
Yeah.
Like none of you cared. 2 months ago, nobody gave a shit. Like that's a really hard sell.
Yeah. I guess that's all right. I guess just 1 minute of footage isn't going to correct an entire BVS for me. You know what I mean? Even that one thing isn't going to help me. So like the subject of Superman is it's almost like a lost cause in either case because like it's already the failures at the get-go.
I mean, I agree.
So like, again, like he is better in the Whedon cut, but also like putting like, it's not like the dialogue is like golden. It's just him saying more Superman things than he's ever said before. And which is kind of a bummer, I guess, when we're looking at it that way. But hey, man, he's still like punching dudes and lasering horns and stuff.
He's got good action.
Yeah, still good action. He's a good puncher.
Good action, but one of my big concerning the superheroes in this movie, Superman is my biggest criticism because this is more Zack Snyder Superman, where he's all like mean, beating the crap out of people, and it's just like, huh. Like,
well, I
like,
wouldn't say mean. He's more aggressive.
Yeah, he's very much. This is very much. I could easily see this Superman turn into like the nightmare Superman that we see at the very end of the movie, or even in the scenes with BVS where he's like a dictator or a slave to Darkseid. It's like this part I could easily see. Whereas in the reading cut, that's Superman. That's like, I'm here to save people. I'm here to help. And if he can throw a little one-liner here and there, okay, sure, go for it. But
I mean, that's pretty much the thing, is what you're hitting right on the head there, is that this was always what Snyder wanted, was a Superman who was going to go evil. That's why Superman is the way he is in the previous films. Like, this was always a Superman who was going to fail to stay on the straight and narrow path because he was going to kill Lois. Like, that clearly was always the plan. And so he was building a Superman who would feel appropriate to that. And I guess he succeeds, because that is what it feels like, this, which also just feels foreign to Superman. I mean, it's dumb to say because it's what everybody said, but he just made Injustice Superman. Yeah. Like, that's all he was ever doing. He was just making Injustice Superman. So everyone's saying like he's not like the main Superman in the comics. You are correct. He's not, because he was doing an Injustice version of Superman. And that's what it always was. That's what it clearly is, for better and for worse.
I wish.
Like when he shows up to
Injustice.
Like when he shows up to fight Darkseid, when he shows up to fight Steppenwolf, and he goes, "Not impressed," and then he just continues to beat the crap out. I was like, I don't know. I just
thought that was fine.
I mean, yeah, it was fine, but it was just seeing the difference of Superman and seeing that is like Superman nailed. Even though the rest of the movie didn't nail it, they nailed Superman. This movie nails everything else, but it does not nail down Superman. Yeah. And also, this is just a me thing. I just don't like the black suit. I don't like that. Okay. That's now his new suit. I don't like it.
No, I don't like it either.
That's fine.
It's very clearly just, this happened in the comics, therefore here it is. But like, I wish that if they're gonna do it, I wish it at least looked not like the exact same suit but colored black. I wish that they did some more design that actually referenced the way it looks in the comics. I wish there was some kind of thematic or character feeling reason that I could gauge on why Superman chooses that suit, but there's nothing there. I'm with you, Ben. I don't care for the black suit. It feels completely just like because comic.
Yeah, well, even then we saw the black suit in Man of Steel when he was in the dream sequence with Zod. And then it's like, hey, we're going to put the black suit in Justice League. It was like, cool, but he only wears a black suit once. He only wears it. The black suit helps him absorb more radiation. Then he's back to his regular suit at the very end of the book. But, of course, at the end of the movie where you see him in the trench coat and he does the Superman reveal, it's still the black suit. It's like, that's okay.
I don't have a problem with it. Yeah. Suits have not been... He's chosen suits in dumb ways. Like it was in a capsule before, just like this one was. Like his suits, I don't know, it doesn't bother me at all.
Yeah, but besides that, I thought I was gonna hate Darkseid in this movie. I actually kind of dig him. I think Darkseid is pretty cool in this movie.
Yeah, I think obviously like the CGI isn't a Thanos level because these dudes were making this during the pandemic, but it looks pretty good. I think the voice is good. The guy who's doing the voice is pretty intimidating. It's a shame because like Darkseid is really cool, and there is a world where like we could build up to him like after this is established. But now, unfortunately, that New Gods movie is gone, and Darkseid is probably just going to stay away for a long, long time until they can reboot him in like 10 years or something, which is a shame. But at least Zack Snyder got to do like, hey, this is what my idea was going to be. Here's what he looks like. And looks good. Big old granny goodness. I love a big old mean lady. Love it. Saw her for 2 seconds, made me happy.
Just looking at some Superman notes here. I like the conversation between Superman and Alfred. However, I'm kind of baffled that Superman can't just figure out where they are.
Yeah. He hears around the world.
Because he's Superman. And he's like, yeah, where'd they go? Where's the fight?
Why would he go to Batman's house?
Yeah, right. It's a little weird. It's a fine scene, but it's a little strange.
I think the farm dialogue is better. Because like in the Whedon cut, like again, like when you have only the Whedon cut, it's fine. But she's like, "Oh, you smell good," and he's like, "Did I not before?" I'm like, "That's not silly. That's silly."
That's
and then it's so much better when in this one he's like, "Oh, you spoke. Did I not speak before?" I think that's just a more natural. Like it just sounds better. I think the stuff with him and his mom on the farm is so much better.
I think his gradual recollections that are happening. There's that moment where he's like staring out
at the window. Yeah,
is better. I kind of miss the implication in the theatrical cut that like I like the setup of Lois going to the memorial every day. I think that's a fine character thing. Real weird how they threw the pregnancy test thing in. Super bizarre. But I do think like that's a good setup for her. But I kind of do miss Bruce having planned for her to be there to calm Clark down, which was in the theatrical cut, and she just happens to be there and happens to prevent things from going worse.
It's more coincidental.
Because it like that did say something a little more about Bruce, about him being thoughtful.
Yes.
It also kind of did hint to him at least being somewhat aware of Barry's message from BVS, which in this one he references, but again took no action on.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. And then again, like that awesome scene where Superman fights the League. Longer in this cut, a little more action. Wonder Woman has a slightly better Kal-El. No, still bad though. Still good, but not as bad.
Yeah, Superman taking on the Flash is still great.
That is like that will forever. Like whatever you think about like this movie, either version, like that moment where Superman turns his head to see the Flash running super fast.
It's comic gold.
That is comic gold. Like that is such a beautiful, awesome scene.
That is such a great part where he just like turns and sees the Flash, and Flash is like, "Uh-oh,"
and he does like the with a stupid run.
Yeah, you're right. That run is just.
Just why? When you're developing it, why? How does this make you run fast?
I don't know. I don't know. It just looks silly. Can we talk about the very end scene when Darkseid does show up on Earth and vaporizes everything?
Oh my god. Okay, so before we get to that, so the last hour is an action scene. Like the last part,
I want to talk about that.
The last part is just a giant action scene, which blows my mind that the final action scene is like half the length of the original movie. That just boggles my mind how much action is in this last part of the movie. It's so cool. It's so sick. It looks, even though Zack Snyder has a weird color palette, this color palette looks better than the weird red shit that Whedon was doing in the original cut.
No, I took this note. I definitely prefer no red sky for this fight, and somehow Snyder provides better color contrast here, which you rarely say about Snyder, by not having that red sky, and things actually pop out more. And I'm like, wow, that's exceptionally cool.
Yeah.
Bruce's assault on the tower is extended really well. I think that whole plan feels more Batman-y. The Ride Ain't Over line from Victor is different, and it has more personality than for when he catches Aquaman than it did in the Whedon cut. Man, Aquaman still just gets constantly tossed to the side in all the group fights. That happens in both versions.
My man.
I feel bad for him.
I always forget that he does the Jean Grey move from X2 to stop all the water.
Yeah.
My
man. But he definitely has a better dynamic with Diana keeping Steppenwolf away from Cyborg while Barry is charging up.
Yeah. Aquaman has a great line that's not in the original. I keep saying original, but you know what I mean. Where is he talking to Flash or is he talking to Diana? It was like, I thought you didn't care about us, and then Arthur's like, I never said I didn't care, and I'm like, oh, that's just a nice little character.
Yeah,
moment.
I think that's at the. Is that when they're doing the grave digging and he's talking to Diana?
Yes, I think he might be like, when they're hanging out while grave robbing's happening.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, so the grave robbing is still in this movie. I thought that might have been a Whedon thing. Nope, that's a Snyder thing, and they double down on the grave robbing, and everyone's there.
Everyone's there,
but only two of them are working. But there is better dialogue between Arthur and Diana there. Like that, the dialogue in that scene is better.
It's so funny.
It's just still weird. Yes.
Wonder Woman could literally rip that thing up in like a second.
The grave rob. I don't know which grave robin because I like the how Barry and Victor are like, we're the accents, because they are the accents. I like that dialogue between them. But also I remember watching the grave robbing scene and actually liking the back and forth between Diana and Aquaman. I thought that was really good because in the first cut, it felt Aquaman was just like, no, screw all y'all. And then he's like, okay, maybe I should care. And then this one is like, no, I was like, no, I do. It's just I like doing my own thing.
Arthur also has a really good empathetic moment with Victor after Silas kills himself to help them. I thought that was pretty good.
I think the scene itself of when Silas dies, I think it's a really good moment. And it's it's another, it doesn't fully pay off.
Yeah.
But like, I think just watching the scene in like the no and like all that works for me.
At first when it starts, I thought he was just dying to have a sacrifice, and then it's revealed that like he's making it so that they can track where he goes, and I'm like, man, that's cool. I just wish that there had been a little bit more done with their relationship before they killed him.
Yeah.
But I agree. Like, overall, the execution and idea of it is pretty strong.
Yeah, I mean, one thing I will give about the Whedon cut is that at the end of that movie, you do see when Silas is alive, and you also see him like shift Cyborg's armor, so you get like the more recognizable Cyborg armor in a way. But in this movie, I'm bummed that Silas killed himself, but I do like his sacrifice, and I do like how he looks to Victor, and then Victor fixes the tape and listens to his dad talk.
Yeah, I like that too. And because like he breaks the tape, he's like, I said that to you as a scientist, but as a father, and then he breaks the tape. And then he's using techno magic to rewind time or whatever.
That was weird.
So again, another thing about Cyborg is like Cyborg goes from like being in the first movie to being just like a robot man to in this version being the most powerful person on the planet. Because that dude, he has the tip of the iceberg in terms of powers. He can launch all the nuclear codes in a second. He can rob everyone of all their money. And I'm like, holy shit, this dude's like the strongest hero on the planet, right? And I'm like, I guess we'll never find out.
I love how he gives that one lady a bunch of money.
She wins the lottery, and a great thing somebody said is like, "Oh man, she's gonna have to explain that to her tax guy, isn't she?"
Speaking of like Cyborg and his dad's relationship, I do kind of miss the idea of him confronting his dad about how his body is changing. That was in the theatrical cut where he shows him the rockets and he says, I couldn't do that yesterday.
Yeah.
I do kind of miss that idea of like, this thing you did to me is going far past what either of us think it's doing.
Yeah. They're definitely, because I do like all the stuff of him exploring his powers solo, but there definitely could have been a little more of that stuff with his dad. Like, look what you turned me into.
Yeah.
Ryan Choi's in this movie. The second Adam. He's in this movie for a couple minutes. That's cute. That's a shame that character just doesn't exist in this universe anymore.
Yeah,
that's a bummer. Ryan Choi, he's just like the scientist, helper guy.
Yeah, I was wondering who that was. All right.
Yeah, that's who's the Adam? What's his name? Ray
Palmer.
Ray Palmer. He's Ray Palmer's assistant.
Yeah.
Oh.
And he becomes the legacy Adam.
We met him in Crisis too, and he was about as impactful there as he is here.
Yep.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, he doesn't have a lot to do, but it's just nice to see. Oh, look, they're trying to bring more characters in.
That felt more like an appropriate for things than Iris.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
Like I at least feel like you can get the things out of it. That felt more like not to do one for one comparison, but more like an MCU kind of setup.
He was like a Joaquin in Falcon Winter Soldier.
Yeah.
Like oh, here's this character. Yeah. He can show up later.
Yes, exactly.
Torres, excuse me. Yeah. So I guess we can get to the big bad apocalypse explosion now, Ben, because I'll tell you, this is my favorite part of the movie. I really like this Flash scene. The dialogue is so hokey.
Oh, that's what you're talking about.
That's what I'm talking about.
Okay,
what do you think I was talking about?
I thought you were talking about the nightmare stuff.
No.
Okay.
No.
I was like, what joke you running?
No. So Barry has to run fast enough to collect enough speed force to trigger the mother boxes. And he doesn't do it in time because he gets shot. And then the world ends. They lose. The Justice League loses. And the Flash enters the speed force right before he dies. This next 4 minutes is, I'm not exaggerating, for me, some of my favorite superhero stuff I've seen in a movie in my entire life. The dialogue is so hokey that if I were reading it in a comic book, it would work for me. Because I don't like the Flash, but it's stuff's like Dad, I am one of the best of the best. Write your own future, write your own past. For a time travel thing, it works. I think the special effects are amazing. I think this is the best music Junkie XL maybe has ever made. At the Speed of Force, this theme song, I've listened to it countless times since this movie's come out. For me personally, like this scene like makes the movie for me, and it's only a little bit. I think it is. If this is what Zack Snyder's capable of, this scene alone makes me wish he could do more. I adored it.
I also like how Barry acknowledges that I can go so fast that I can break the time barrier, but that's my one rule. I'm not going to break it. And then he sees the impending explosion coming at him, and he goes, Barry, you got to break your one rule, and you got to break it now. And then he charges up, and he just starts running, and all these stuffs. And yeah, I mean, the way he runs, I'm still not the biggest fan of, but the rest of the scene and you slow. This is one of the times where I feel like the slow-mo works very well.
Sure.
Another criticism of this movie, way too much slow-mo. But this is one of the parts where slow-mo works, like where you see Superman's skeleton in his hand like reform when Barry is running and he activates the mother boxes and closes the portal and destroys the mother boxes. That is some really good imagery. Him like listening to his dad talking to him again. You're right. That is some really good stuff. And as I'm watching this, I'm like, this is actually pretty damn good. I actually really enjoy this.
Yeah. I think like the only amount where it's like at all hampered for me is just not liking Barry much.
Yeah.
In the rest of the film before it.
Oh,
I'm like, man, I wish I wasn't feeling so held back on a complete hell yeah for you that I kind of am. I agree. Like it's a really incredible moment. It definitely just is like, damn it. I wish that you were developed better in the lead up to this.
I can't even imagine if like I actually liked the Flash. Like I probably would have cried. Like no joke. Like
yeah,
I think the movie making elements of it are so strong, and the music specifically. Without the music, it wouldn't work. But like it just everything pops so hard. I kind of don't care about the person who it's involved with, but everything is working so hard. Man, that score is so good, especially when it's like pumping in your ears, you guys. Like it is. Again, I wish I could have seen this on the big screen because it is superheroics at its best.
I think a nice comparison that I'm thinking of right now is that like it feels like it should hit me the way that Peter and the Guardians grabbing the stone at the end of Guardians of the Galaxy.
Oh,
hits.
yeah.
But it just doesn't because I'm not connected quite enough to the character. And I'm like, I get that's what this should be, but I'm not there.
100%, yeah.
Because that moment slaps in Guardians.
We're
and
Guardians,
like,
bitch.
This is what I should be feeling. I should be feeling that exact like, oh, damn. Yeah. But it's just falls short of it, and that's a bummer.
Goofy. Yeah, this Goofy Flash, I'm not the biggest fan, but man, the scene when they have to go rescue the hostages and the Flash does like his like zip around on top of all of them, like while like rubble is falling.
Yeah.
And it's like do. I'm like, this is sick. This is sick.
Really great action.
I love the Flash, and this makes me so excited. Like if this is how they represent the Flash's superpowers, change the color, of course. It's gonna be incredible. Like Zack Snyder, for all his faults, has found a way to make super speed look insanely cool. And then the end, and then nightmare stuff happens. Oopie.
They violently kill Steppenwolf.
I love it. Oh my god, I cheered when I watched this live with the Downright Annoyed crew. Superman punches Steppenwolf. And then Wonder Woman chops his head off. And then he goes in the portal and Darkseid steps on his head.
And they just have a stare down with him.
Dude, that is so sick. Like that is like a comic book splash page if I've ever seen one. Like, oh man.
Doesn't Superman like heat vision his horn off?
Yeah.
Like heat vision. He cuts Steppenwolf's horn off. Then Wonder Woman comes in with a sword, chops the head off, kicks it in. Darkseid just like looks at it, looks at them. Portal closes, and then Desaad's like, "Told you." He's like, "Yeah, you did." I was like,
I love that, man.
I was thinking, like, Desaad, are you gonna die right now because you're telling your Lord and Master you told him so?
I definitely thought that, and I love it. Darkseid's like, no, you're right. I was a bitch. I get it. No, I know.
But I guess
we'll have to do it the old ways. You have to go across a million miles of space.
It's like, we shall use the old ways. I'm like, all right, this is okay.
So that just means genocide across the universe. Just a slow annihilation wave. That's cool. I'm into it. Again, you know what? It could be like, we're not going to get anything from this ever again. But like, if they wanted to, they could do like a Thanos approach of like, yo, Darkseid's coming. We don't know when he's coming, but like, we know he's coming. And then the second 10 years, they can do something with him. Because like, I think this this is a good Avengers level-esque buildup. It's not as good as the Avengers, obviously, but like, yo, this is your villain who you're setting up. We actually get to see him instead of just like a turn like Thanos was. Like, it's a good setup. I wish the movie would have ended here instead of the next 15 minutes with the nightmare sequence. But that's how it is. Let's talk about reach arounds and Batman.
I think like the thing that gets me the most about the whole nightmare sequence is that it's the thing he went out of his way to film.
It's the only new footage that
and I'm like, this is trash. Like, this just shouldn't be here. This is 100% the most like kill your darling, my man. Like, like holy God.
I'm of two minds of it. One, it's awful. Two, it is cool. It is nice. Like in 2021. He was able to get like Ben Affleck and Joe Manganiello and Amber Heard, all of them together. Cause like, these are people who liked working on this project and they like Zack Snyder. So there's a part of me that's like, that's really cool that like 4 years later, we can still get the team together to make art. Right. But then also it's like Joker talking about reach arounds. And it's just like, what's the point? What's the point? I didn't hate the scene. I just find it so unnecessarily unnecessary. Especially because, like, if this was your finale and, like, this is the thing you wanted to end on is, like, just more of the future that's not going to happen. It's just odd. Deathstroke looks cool. I love a big mohawk. But, like, I don't get it.
It definitely feels like just a kind of, like, victory lap ego stroking of, like, this is the thing I would have made, everybody. This is where I was going. And I'm like, cool. I never liked that idea.
Yeah.
So I'm already out. I'm all for wanting Jared Leto to be able to really like give what he can to Joker.
Yeah.
I might chalk it up to like lack of rehearsal time or whatever. This interpretation of Joker, I know a lot of people have liked. I think he looks no different than any fan film I've ever seen of the Joker, where someone's just doing cosplay and doing a monologue from the comics. And I'm like, this feels that level of performance where I'm like, yeah, fine. I don't feel like you're doing anything innovative or cool or unique. Your Joker feels like the exact edgelord standard expectation of what the Joker is like.
The only thing that like, that's like really, I think not the only thing, but what's really working for fans who want to see this is it's the first time Batman and Joker get to interact, right? Or this incarnation. And like for a lot of people, that's a big deal. For some people, them interacting is all you need, and it's good. And that's just unfortunate.
Yeah.
I think the dialogue's very bad.
Yes.
But there is something for me about just Ben Affleck talking about Dead Robin that I'm like, I want more of this.
I mean, Ben
this.
Affleck's the good side of that conversation.
Yes.
Like the dialogue's still not good, but Ben Affleck's Batman is the only part of that relationship dynamic I'm interested in, because I was interested in seeing Jared Leto's Joker, but this performance is trash. This performance is terrible. Like absolutely terrible. It's hokey. It's drawn out in a like really cheesy, gross way. I don't care for it, and I'm happy to never see any more of it.
And there's a part where I think Batman talks about like killing Harley Quinn, and there's like literally like a 30-second pause where it's just the Joker like in the sunlight and like it's being artsy, and I'm like, nah, Zach, no.
He's like telling the Joker that he's going to kill him like he promised Harley Quinn when she was dying in his arms he would.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
and then there's like a long pause.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. Batman got to say the F word.
I
like Manganiello's mohawk though.
Yeah. That is really God, talk about positives. Joe Manganiello is really cool, and that's a dude who just really wants to be Deathstroke. And I hope, like a Ryan Reynolds situation, he'll get to actually play Deathstroke one day, because I think that is really, really good casting. That dude rules.
I was excited to see him as Deathstroke again, even though. So I was really bummed. One of the things that I would have liked to see out of like the ending parts of this movie was when we still don't like Jesse Eisenberg as Lex Luthor, but I actually kind of liked him when Deathstroke shows up. He's like, here's a gift for you. Batman is Bruce Wayne, and then Deathstroke goes, well, I changed my mind. I'm gonna have a drink with you. Then that is something to drink about, because I'm like, that would have been so good for the next Ben Affleck Batman movie. It's like Deathstroke coming in is like, I know you're Bruce Wayne, bitch, and then just like too.
What's funny is like that wasn't like a reshot scene. That's just like an alternate version of a scene they shot in 2017. Because like they're wearing the same stuff, and it's not like they brought Jesse Eisenberg back and shaved his head or anything. Like that's just a different cut, and that's a better version of the one we got.
Cut. Yeah,
and I'm like, man,
what we got with him saying, don't we deserve a league of our own? It's like, oh my god,
yeah, I get it. Like I didn't like that. I'm a bigger fan of this one.
But him saying that, hey, Batman's Bruce Wayne, and then Deathstroke going, oh, I can work with this, and like, man, I would love to see that new Batman movie. I would love that. And then we got the nightmares. No, and then we got to like the actual nightmare stuff. And the whole time watching this, I'm like, is this not the future we're not going to get anymore? Or is this still what we're supposed to do? Because if this is what he wanted to do in the long game, I do not want to see that.
So I really don't want to get into it too much because I don't care. But I did research enough just into the nightmare stuff just to see like where is he going, what is he doing. All the nightmare sequences that we've seen, they're not in order. The scene that we got with Deathstroke and Amber Heard, that's in the middle of the nightmare scenario, and the stuff from BVS, that's near the end of it. It's just he's slowly trying to piece together what the future's like timeline would be throughout all the movies, and that's just not a way you do it. I just don't. Well,
and he also said that like his part 2 was going to be mostly the nightmare.
Good. No. It doesn't. I don't need any more of it. Is what I'm saying.
Yeah. I mean, like, it also it just gets weird. Like, this was always one of my biggest problems with BVS was that it's a dream, but it's not a dream.
Yeah.
And then he wakes up from the dream, and Barry was there, and then he wakes up from another dream, but Barry was actually there because the papers are flying. And I'm like, this is all stupid, and it makes no sense. Yeah. And he does nothing with that knowledge. And
then he wakes up from this dream, and here comes Martian Manhunter.
Right. And I mean, like, it's all just serving a purpose of like, you know, Lois gets killed, so Superman goes bad, and they have to do the thing to eventually make Barry go back in time and change it again.
Yeah,
I guess.
Yeah, no, that is it. That's
like,
it.
and that's and I.
So okay, so I
don't even know like what value that story holds.
It's just him wanting to tell a cool, edgy story. So yeah, like the nightmare story is like them. They're working on a cosmic treadmill in a city,
right?
And like they're doing missions to try to build it to send Barry back in time, which is what we saw in BVS. That's what it's leading up to. If restore the Snyderverse, whatever, I don't need any more nightmare stuff. Martian Manhunter shows up at the end, you guys. Supposed to be Jon Stewart. Either way, it was still whatever. What does he say? He's like, I'm watching out for you, Batman. I'm here to help you. Goodbye.
Yeah.
Who are you?
That was before the nightmare.
Yeah, sorry. Right.
Yeah, because man, it's like farting before you leave the room, because like I was in a pretty good place overall with the Snyder Cut, and then we end on this like 15 to 20 minute epilogue of the nightmare stuff, and it's just the most like jerking yourself off kind of thing.
No,
and it just like, it feels like because of the circumstances that they filmed it. I think he said recently that he filmed Leto in his driveway for it.
Oh, the same way he did Jon Stewart. Cool.
That this is, you know, it just feels like a student film tacked on in like the worst way, so poorly thought out, so much not providing anything to the characters, to the story, and it's something we're never going to follow up on. So why do we care? It is so bizarre. It's such a bizarre like, it feels like him just trying to kind of put up a middle finger on what people aren't going to have, like the people who don't want it. He's like, this is the thing it would have been, or whatever, because he's been increasingly antagonistic towards Warner Brothers in his comments lately, like saying that they've been aggressively anti-him with their DC conversation, which is interesting to see. But it just feels like the everything about it was kind of like a nice exploration of a director's vision up to that point, and then it's like blah.
And if that's where like a lot of the millions of dollars went to just reshoot, like, or not reshoot, to shoot that new stuff at the end,
not worth it.
Put it on Cyborg's CGI maybe instead. Yeah. Like, I don't know. Real quick, there was a nightmare sequence, like when Superman goes bad and like a dark side comes.
Yeah, the vision that Cyborg has of dark side.
We get to see Omega beams for a little bit. I like Omega beams a lot. They go bing 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 bong. I think it's cool.
You see a dead Kilowog.
You do see that Kilowog. Yes, you're right. I knew it. Yeah.
You see dead Kilowog. You see destroyed Hall of Justice. You see Superman holding Lois's skeleton and kneeling and feeling. Oh God!
Ben, did you know that the scene where Superman's kneeling over and Darkseid puts his hand on his shoulder? That's a scene from Man of Steel.
That's right after he kills Zod.
After he kills Zod, he's like, ugh. They reused that footage. It looks fine. Like, it doesn't look bad. But you can definitely tell it's a much younger Henry Cavill. But it's like, it's the CGI is, for the most part, pretty good for a movie that was made in a pandemic. Again, like, which is really, really fascinating. Man, at the end of the day, you guys, this Fake Nerd podcast, when it was announced about the Snyder Cut, like, we were all fairly negative. Like, we don't need it. Now that we're here, I'm pretty positive on it, and I almost feel bad because I know I was pretty negative, and I got nicer over the time. But like, I remember being this like so anti this, and now that it's here, I'm like, man, this is pretty good.
I think it is better than the theatrical version, and I do overall, and I do think that it is cool to see. I still stand by like things that we were saying in the beginning, which is that I think this sets a not great precedent for rewarding toxic behavior and demanding things like this, demanding what people expect of their films to do for them. It's cool in the sense that Snyder gets to finish a vision that he was taken away from due to family tragedy. But the idea of ballooning the budget for the film maybe was a little crazy. I don't know. We'll never really know if that paid off in Warner Brothers' minds for HBO Max viewers.
We do know that like we've seen like the top viewed movies. It's not in the top 5,
right?
Which is because we've had like Wonder Woman 84 and Godzilla and Kong and Mortal Kombat, and unfortunately, Snyder Cut has not hit the top of any of those lists.
Because like the people who wanted this were a very loud minority. Like most average people went and saw BVS, didn't really care for it, so they didn't go see Justice League, or they saw Justice League and they didn't like that either, and they were done. Like, that's it. And you can't expect them to give another version of it a chance, let alone a 4-hour version. So that's why it gets a little like, I don't know how great it is that this was facilitated to happen in terms of like what it represents in how we associate with media and how fandoms get to control what gets put out. But it is a interesting and cool experience to get to see. I think I would have been just as happy seeing, for the most part, a lot of what this was, even if the visuals weren't completely finished, just to know by comparison without having to balloon the budget up. But we're here.
I think there will be someone will release like a 3-hour cut that will half the slow-mo, get rid of some of the bad stuff, maybe just take out all the nightmare stuff, and I will happily watch it. It's again not a perfect movie, but like, if there's a Justice League movie that's out, I would like to watch it. And if there's a really good version of it, like, again, like, there's some stuff in here that's like some of my favorite superhero stuff. There's also some really bad stuff, but like, that's a Zack Snyder movie for you. Ben, anything?
I said when we first saw the Justice League the very first time, I said with all the problems that film had, what we got wasn't bad, but I definitely now prefer this one. I do not approve of how we got it, but at the end of the day, I am glad that that Zack Snyder was able to come in and actually do what he wanted to do, and he was actually able to finish the work. I kind of did like how it said for Autumn, his daughter, at the end of the movie. I was glad that he was able to actually do what he wanted to do, and he was able to do it fully. But the ends still don't justify the means. Whereas we said that the Snyder cult, they were still very loud and very toxic minority. And I still feel that yes, they finally got what they wanted, but just attacking random people for just saying otherwise is not right.
Well, and this is something that, we didn't really go into it on the podcast, so I think it's relevant to bring it up here with like Zack Snyder finally like kind of acknowledging some of the bad that's in that movement, and then thus those people hating on the thing they were demanding after all this time kind of blindly, essentially, is again like kind of a this is who you were rewarding kind of situation. And I think it does call into question like the idea of, again, like, I think that there is perfectly good reason to justify Zack Snyder getting to put together some assembly of the cut.
Director's cuts happen all the time.
Exactly.
It's not uncommon.
But did it necessarily need to be this thing? I wonder, how reasonable that was, especially with the backlash that happened on both sides at different points in time towards it. It's such a bizarre thing. It's especially nice. I think it is especially nice in relation to the things that have come out with, with Ray Fisher's experience and Gal's experience and the rest of the cast experience related to Joss Whedon, that is not the only version that we have to sit with, is, I think, really, really nice. And so overall, I'm happy that this exists in the world, because I think it is important to recognize some of that disparity. It's very, very much a clear case on where these directors' visions and interactions with the studio separated creative vision from marketability and the seediness that kind of happened behind the scenes to make certain things go wrong. And you don't get that kind of look into film, certainly not into comic book film either, very often. So for that alone, I think it has value and merit. I definitely think that you just cut out the budget, don't have that nightmare thing, cut out that portion of it, and then leave a lot of the rest to sit there, and it's all right. It is nice to see something that is so purely what he wanted, even if I don't agree with everything.
And again, that's why I am I don't love the movie, but I am such an advocate for it, because it is a director, like you said, Ben, like how we've all said, somebody getting to finish the vision that they set out on almost 10 years ago. It's so unfortunate that this dude, despite how he feels about these characters, he likes these characters, and he had a vision since Man of Steel to tell this big story, and Warner Brothers was letting him do it, and it was successful for the most part until it wasn't. And I get why he had to leave the project. But it is just really nice to have something that is so one person's instead of 100 people's, because you can just tell the difference. You just see it on the screen.
I think he definitely engaged better with things in the DC universe here than he did in BVS and in Man of Steel.
Again, I think he's evolving, and he's realizing and it's a weird way, his view on Superman is so bad, but he has a very long way of eventually getting there. And it's not the character you do it with. You don't spend 10 years getting Superman to be Superman. That dude's born, and he's born in Kansas. This isn't injustice. Just make injustice if you want to do that.
Right. I think that is one of the biggest, make or break it with people who engage with the Snyder films, is that, Superman is kind of where you fall on that line, kind of decides how you can engage with it. And being told, and this was part of the thing, this is part of the thing where knock on Zack Snyder himself, where he tells you you're wrong. We've talked about this before.
It's the name of our podcast.
Yeah. For saying that Superman isn't in his films isn't exactly representational of the comic character, and it's truly not. And that's not really something that should even be debated. It's fine for him to want to take the character in his own direction. I think the disingenuous posturing that his Superman is truly correct is part of what puts fans so anti his way of driving it. If you're more honest up front and being I'm taking him in this direction of my own volition, is something that people can go, well, at least he's being honest and upfront about it. But when you're trying to tell people this is the Superman you love, and they're no, it's not, that's hard.
And the thing is, Superman and Batman are obviously very different characters, and there's a lot of modern people who just don't like Superman because he is very much a nice guy, an old school sweet character, and there's just some people who just don't jive with that, and so they do jive with Superman in Zack Snyder's universe, and I'm very happy for them. And they got what they want. I
have a hard time grappling with that concept that Superman can't work because he's too positive and all that. And Captain America does just fine.
That's what I don't understand.
Chris Evans' Captain America is one of the most beloved heroes over in the MCU. Now, granted, you have those people who absolutely hate the MCU and are pro DC, but I'm that is not the majority.
That's the problem.
Saying that Superman can't function because of those reasons is bullshit.
That's the problem. We just haven't gotten a really good Superman movie in a long time to show that just the character can work on its own. That's why Captain America works, because he's had 3 good movies. Man, we just need a good Superman movie to show that, it's okay to be a nice guy. It's not bad. I promise.
Yeah. I kind of wanted to just brush through a couple of notes that we didn't acknowledge in the time that we went through all of this. I I want to jump all the way back to the very beginning because we didn't really talk about
the screen!
concept of the screen. Yeah. I think maybe in a world where I didn't dislike BVS so much, I wouldn't think that the yell spreading out was so hokey. And I kind of go back to like, I think that either you can have the wave reaching out to the mother boxes, or you can have the sound reaching out to the mother boxes, but it shouldn't be both. I think that the combination makes it overly silly.
Yeah.
And this is another one of those things where like, that is, you get a glimpse of Cyborg at the beginning with the mother box, and then you don't see him for another hour and 15 minutes. And I'm like, he should have been way more upfront and center from the jump. And I wish that was the case. We talked about this, like, it's not explained in the movie, and I think we have the same hypothesis. Why do the mother boxes wait for Superman's death to activate? I think that the implication is supposed to be...
Steppenwolf says no Kryptonians. So,
right. Yeah. But like before he came to Earth, why didn't the mother boxes call out? That's before Superman was there.
Yeah.
And I think that the implication is supposed to be that the mother boxes were completely asleep until Silas experimented on Victor. And then they activate, and then they know Superman's there, and they're like, oh, yeah, well, we don't do anything. Superman dies, and they're like, great, send the signal.
Yeah,
I think that's the implication. It's just not clear.
It isn't clear. Definitely the mother boxes are better utilized in this movie, but there's definitely some MacGuffinness to them still. Yeah.
It's just like, it's never 100% clear. Like, yes, I understand the concept that like Superman died, therefore they sent the signal, but I'm like, why didn't they send the signal before Superman was ever on Earth?
I think they were all,
and that's not obvious.
Yeah, I think they were all asleep, and then Silas did some stuff, and they're like, "Oh, what's up?" And then Superman dies, and they're like, "Oh, what's up?"
Yeah.
I think you're right,
I think that's what it's supposed to be. Yeah. It's just a little weird that it's not a 4-hour film doesn't make that obvious to me.
Yeah, you're right.
I really like the mood of the opening. The opening being Bruce slowly getting to where Arthur is with the credits and everything.
Oh, I think it's a slow.
I think it's a good mood. It's a little long in the tooth, but it's pretty good.
Yeah.
So this is just referring back to like how I think this is chopped up poorly. I think this is a really great example. Some scenes should just come before others. So we have Bruce when he is with Arthur, and then we cut to Martha, and then we cut to Bruce talking to Alfred and saying Arthur said no, and then we cut to Lois after engaging with Martha, and I'm like, this should have been Bruce from Arthur to Alfred to Martha to Lois, not jank it up every 30 seconds swapping between those four. And that's what I mean, where like that order gets really weird, and I'm like, this clearly needed like, and I don't know that Zack Snyder, I don't know how much he creatively gets involved with the specific editing of all his films. Like, he's not the sole editor usually, but this is the case where he is. And I think that he just got kind of lost in where to put things a little bit. And I think that some things could have been tied together a little nicer rather than like jumping all over the place. Feels really uncomfortable. In relation to that, there's this one scene that sequence, it's literally 30 seconds that just didn't need to be there, and it's the part where the parademons just drop Silas off with the other people they've abducted. It's 30 seconds and it's just literally the parademons dropping him off, and I'm like, I get that he was taken. We already saw that where he was taken. Like, this is nothing. This tells me nothing.
You know what this feels like? It's like he had an assembly cut that was like 3 hours and 20 minutes, and he's like, but I still have all this footage.
Yeah.
And he just puts it where he thinks it goes.
Yeah,
it doesn't feel like it's edited like a regular movie. It's like it's put in places like, oh, I have this 30-second scene. Where Martha has she not been?
Right. There. Yes, that is very much what it feels like, and it's like some of these things could either just be gone, like that Silas engagement, or they need to be lined up better. And I think like it would make the 4-hour film feel a little better.
Yeah. That makes sense. Yeah.
One of the few visuals that I think I really, besides anything with Barry, that I really like slow motion for is actually Arthur going into the ocean when he marches off the thing. It's because the way the water crashes looks cool in slow motion. So I think it's really effective. It's a bummer. This is one of those moments where I think the music needle drop for him doing it is better in theatrical cut than this one. It's this weird dramatic music, and I like it much better in that theatrical version.
Batman has some really bad like butt rock. That's what I call like bad rock. Where it's just like very much like the Titans theme song.
Yes,
but I like it. It's like kind of bad, but it's like super just like generic like 1999 grunge rock. I liked it a lot.
Yes.
Butt rock.
I really like there's a Diana and Alfred scene around tea that I just think is a really nice interaction.
Oh, because she can't make tea.
It does nothing to further the plot.
No, but it's cute.
But it is cute.
Alfred, Jeremy Irons is a treasure. Like,
yeah,
what are you gonna say?
Didn't get enough to do with Alfred in the theatrical cut. Gets a little bit more here.
Gauntlets. Those are completely cut from the last movie.
Yes.
Batman's just wearing these gauntlets that can absorb energy. Why is it
which Alfred was working on? Yeah.
What was that entire thing is cut from the movie? I'm like, that's crazy, man.
I kind of like Victor meeting Diana in the hoodie in the theatrical cut better. I like the scene overall better in the Snyder cut. But what I like about the hoodie is it's him kind of like uncomfortable and ashamed of his metallic body. And I wish that there was more of that presence. Also, it hides that shitty CGI body a little more. True. So I'm kind of bummed that was taken away. It's really interesting. I kind of wish there was a little more attached to it. Interesting that he buries the mother box in his own grave.
Oh.
Which
he died.
Yeah, which is something that we brush over. But like Victor's got a grave next to his mom's.
That's sad.
And that didn't get touched on a lot. And I'm like, he's dead.
Well, I mean, I guess.
Let's see. Steppenwolf wasting Atlanteans is cool. Probably one of the best action sequences in there.
I like Steppenwolf. I like when his armor like retracts. Like when he meets Darkseid, he's like, "Oh, I got to be honorable. Take my helmet off."
Yeah,
like, I think that's a cool little thing.
Even though his head looks goofy,
he looks like a big horn man.
Steppenwolf seeing the land of the old battle that we see in the flashback with Darkseid, and he discovers the presence of the anti-life equation. I guess somehow they didn't remember that he fought here. And
so they didn't. So this is they don't explain it enough.
I agree. Yeah,
but yeah. Darkseid and his forces basically forget where Earth is because so much time has passed. Because they lost and they just retreated and they left the mother boxes, and now the mother boxes are asleep and they can't talk to them. So now once the mother box was activated, that's when they're like, oh, now we know where to go. But then the mother boxes get destroyed at the end.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that definitely, like, the anti-life equation is just kind of tossed aside as
it is
100%. And I wish that they elaborated on its relevance in the terms of this film.
I wish that they wouldn't have gone into it because in the comics it's also like a bullshit MacGuffin thing too. But like I wish they wouldn't have gone into it as much in here because it doesn't really make any sense. So you don't understand what it is.
Yeah, so, I agree.
You're looking for it, but you don't know what it is or what it does.
You could have just left it at the mother box as being a thing and that being it. And Steppenwolf has enough motivation of trying to like reclaim honor with Darkseid. Like it's well developed enough. You don't need the anti-life equation thrown out. I think you're right.
If you do want to do the anti-life equation, don't do it as much and just be like, oh my god, it's here. And then that's like a tease because this whole movie's a tease. You know what I mean?
100%.
Like,
Sparkz, how many more of these do you have? Because unfortunately, I do need to go soon.
Not a lot. I just want to note that Cyborg has a line where he says, "I'm always dressed."
I liked it.
Yeah,
I liked it.
This is Alfred. I work for him is probably one of the best lines in this whole movie.
Oh hell yeah! Batfleck's so good.
He's very good. And I'm really glad that they changed Willem Dafoe's look from this piece of junk into the James Wan version, and that's pretty much all.
Does he have like the long hair in this?
Everything else we covered. Yeah, it's the armor. The armor is so bad. Anyway, that's most of mine. Everything else we pretty much covered in the discussion. I think we went through it pretty well.
Yeah, I'm pleasantly surprised. I am glad that the Zack Snyder universe isn't the direction we are going for all the characters. I am glad for that because like Shazam, Birds of Prey, Aquaman, like I infinitely like those movies better than the previous Zack Snyder movies. That being said,
I think they're all stronger.
Yes. That being said, I do really like this movie, and it's not Zack Snyder's typical like super dark like everyone like is mean and evil. Like he had a trajectory for the characters, and it's like it is a shame. I would like to see more of this, but like not in service of this other stuff that we're getting, which is better.
I think what he did well going from BVS to this is that BVS feels way too much like it's mired in one single tone for all the characters. Mm-hmm. And this doesn't feel like that for every character. They're not all wrapped up in that one idea. And that is growth. And that is what I think makes this rise above Man of Steel and BVS in terms of his DC output. It's still not what I want, but there are things that are pretty strong.
Absolutely. Any last thoughts, Benjamin? No. You're muted. You're right,
I'm muted. Thank you. I don't approve of how we got here, but of the product that was given to us, I quite enjoy. I don't know if I am going to watch this again in the near future, but I'm glad that Zack Snyder was able to do his whole vision. And part of me is like, hey, there's some good setup for other stuff, and there's also part of me is like, there's like some stuff is good, the rest of it's not so much. I'm not a fan of that. I'm good. It's weird. Part of me is like, I would like to see what Zack Snyder would have done going forward, but at the same time, it's like if the end game was like the nightmare universe where Superman's evil, don't want it.
It's not the end game. It just unfortunately like would have been a big part of the next chapter.
I really wish that there was a version where we got to have most of these characters developed in their own films that weren't done by Zack Snyder, weren't overseen by Zack Snyder, where they got to be their own things, but he gets to do the big team up film with Darkseid stuff.
Yeah.
And have to work with the things that came before and make them, and I wonder if he would have been able to bring enough to the table to like allow the tones from their own individual films to bleed through and be dynamic enough while also putting his own flair, because I think, like, again, this is not new. Zack Snyder has good eye for beautiful cinematography, for action especially. Like, he can do really cool stuff, and I kind of wish that he was the person who got to put together the Team Justice League film, but after strong characters were established in previous works with their own feelings, and he could bring them together and make them into something stronger. I wish that was the reality we lived in.
Yeah. Hopefully, maybe one day we can get like an animated movie or something to continue this for you, because it does have its fans, right? Like it's they wouldn't have made this for nothing.
Yeah. Although by HBO Max numbers, maybe they did.
True.
Okay, so that'll do it.
You want to take us out? I don't know what to do.
Sure. So that's it for our SnyderCut discussion. You can definitely check out our old episode where we discussed the original theatrical cut of Justice League if you are interested for comparative thoughts.
4 years ago.
But we're definitely, I think, hotter on this than we were even on that.
I've watched this movie twice now, and I liked it. I liked it better the second time.
Nice.
Yeah.
I still haven't gone through, but I have watched sequences. Yeah, so we are members of the Fake Nerd Podcast. You can check out all our stuff here on YouTube or listen to our audio stream wherever podcasts are found. We are probably dropping this right around the time where we're about to do a superhero television wrap-up, where we're basically talking about how superheroes on TV have evolved and how they're being displayed and shown. This is coming hot off the heels of us talking about Jupiter's Legacy, the first episode or two last week in comparison to its comic, and an Invincible Fake Nerds Watch that's gone up already this week, where we talked about that whole season in summary. So this is kind of where it's all feeding into. You can also find things like our Basement Arcade pause menu, which is going to have a new episode up just around the time that this comes out, which is all about collecting video games that our friend here, Ben, did. You can also find a whole bunch of our stuff, links to our Patreon and all that kind of stuff at fakenerdpodcast.com, where we work on all these things with our co-host Brandon T. McClure. And that's pretty much going to do it. You can check out our Fake Nerd Book Club, where we talk about comics, and you can check out our Fake Nerds Watch, where we talk about shows and all these other things that you might be interested in.
Falcon Winter Soldier just ended. We talked about it.
Yeah. But otherwise, that'll do it for this. You can find us at Fake Nerd Podcast on Instagram, Twitter, all the social medias. And again, fakenerdpodcast.com to find our Patreon and all those other things. Ben, where can they find you?
You can find me at BenMagnet27 on Instagram and Twitter.
Ryan?
You can find me at DJ Tony Snark everywhere.
And you can find me relatively pleasantly surprised with the SnyderCut at Sparkz Witty on Instagram and Twitter, SPARKZ Witty. And that'll do it. So until next time, stay fake nerds.
I'm always dressed.